Welcome to another episode of Beauty and the Priest, where we just talk about stuff that people want to hear about. I'm Fiona.
And I'm Jim. And thanks so much for joining us today. Today's episode, we're going to talk about self-denial versus self-appeasement. Whereabouts do you need to balance that? How much is too much and how much is simply not enough?
Yeah.
So that's really what we wanted to do with today's conversation. So Fiona, do you want to talk a little bit about, from your perspective, whereabouts you see that type of thing play out?
Yeah, well, I guess I deal with it with my coaching clients a fair bit, where people are saying, like, always talking about too much and not wanting too much, and not even talking about yourself and try and dial yourself down. But it's about what is too much. And I've had this battle myself in overindulging. And I know that it says in the Bible that God wants you to have abundantly more than you could hope for or imagine. But then it also in other places says, sell up everything and live a meager life. And it's like, what is the right thing to do? Because I know God wants me to be successful and have a lot. How do we find that balance? And I think that's something that people struggle with, and it can be a real blocker for people.
It can be, especially when you consider there are people out there who run their own business is a good example. If you're running your own business, it is so consuming, it takes up so much of your time, and you throw so much of your time, effort, resources, everything at that. And then, of course, you expect something to come back, but there's always so many mouths to feed within your business, so many bills coming in and all those different things. So, of course, it makes total sense to sort of give yourself as much of a buffer zone as possible to try and keep as much in the pantry, if you like, as much as possible.
Yeah.
But then there's the other side of that, whereas we know that there are so many people who are really going without.
Yeah.
Obviously, within ourselves, within our family, within our wider family, within our community, and then, of course, overseas. So, should you buy that brand new car where you know that sort of money could go towards these other people who are literally starving to death?
Yeah.
That is really the challenge. So that's why I thought we'd chuck that up there as a conversation piece.
I know, and I'd love to know what other people think as well. So, like, as we're talking, if you're thinking, what's your opinion? Put it in the comments. But I know that I have struggled with this myself, about holding myself back, because it is like, well, it could be a belief that you've been brought up with in your family. It could even be that money was really tight in your family, and so you have brought that forward into your life as well. And it could be, that like religious beliefs that you shouldn't have too much. But see, and maybe just me wanting to take this part out of the Bible, it's like God's streets are paved with gold, and He wants to give you abundantly more than you could hope for or imagine. I guess it's finding that balance between what you need and what other people need as well. To that point, I do know, and I can't remember who it was, but there was a business, I think it was a businesswoman, it was a woman who said she just decided, she worked out what she would want for her income and her lifestyle, and capped her salary at what she needed. And anything above that would go to charity and go to just other people that needed it as well.
Sure. Well, John Wesley did that, in fact, several centuries ago.
Oh, right.
That very thing. So he lived on a ridiculously modest salary, about the same as an apprentice wage today. And that's even when he was married and had a family to raise. And he only took that and put the rest of it back into ministry and mission, seed funding and all those different things that he had going on. So, there is a lot of examples of people living like that, living quite frugal lives. But we also know, depending on where you are and what sort of life you live, you do have various different needs. And obviously that's also true when you have children. So is it appropriate, for argument's sake, to be sending your kids to the very best schools that cost tens of thousands of dollars every year? Again, knowing that will make it so that you have to work so much harder, and obviously you'll need to deny other things, other luxuries, or perhaps you're living such a lifestyle that's, you've got so much money coming in that you do send the kids off there, and what do you do, and how much is enough to be giving over to charity? What, half your wage, is that enough? all those type of questions, I think, are really, really relevant and really important to consider.
Yeah. And how do we find the answer? Because I don't know whether there's one right answer, because also it depends on it's like if you've grown up in a very wealthy family with a wealthy lifestyle, that's normal to you, like to what you would need as an income, as opposed to what somebody who grew up in a lower income family that feels like what they've got is normal and they're happy with that, can be the difference between like a couple of $100,000 a year. Right. And what they find happy and normal, and maybe even living on a budget in their Brighton mansion, might be different to but they're both equally happy. This is where I'm not even sure. Of course, we are meant to look after each other and meant to look after community, and nobody wants to see people without food or shelter. But there are so many people in the world without food or shelter, while there are other people in the world with billions of dollars that they will never use.
Yes.
And I think this is where the imbalance has happened. And not what is it? Is it socialism that makes? Is that right? I'm not good with that kind of stuff that balances out the finances between everybody. It's like, if you want more money, then work more. Well, it's not that simple. It's about what they've got to work with, beliefs and all that sort of stuff, because skills has got nothing to do with earning money.
No, and sometimes it's even depending on your industry, you can just be a lot of dollars coming your way. And then of course there's other things that just can sometimes happen if you have an industrial accident, for argument's sake, or become significantly unwell, or members of your family do, and that takes a lot more of your resources to look after. When you're looking at things and saying, look, I've earned this, therefore that gives me license to do what I like. It doesn't really work out that way. All you need to do is to talk with anybody else who has worked just as hard as, if not harder than you, and see that they've got so much less. Well, how then does that work in your brain? How do you justify that? Too bad for them, too bad, and move on with your life. And
go too bad. That's a really good point, because somebody else has worked just as hard as you have for significantly less money. Now, the big question is here, not should we give our surplus money away, but how do we find like that? I just don't see that ever happening in our lifestyle. Is that there are a lot of people and a lot of charities. It's what is too much. Like the question is, like, if I have worked really hard and I want to have a 5-star luxury holiday every year, but I could go stay in a caravan park in Cowes and still have fun. Like, is that overindulgent, or is it just?
And for those who don't know, Cowes is a place in Phillip Island, which is not too far from Melbourne, but it is quite a nice island with surf and all those different things.
It's a lovely little place. It's somewhere that a lot of us went to for our, our humble school holidays in our caravans in the caravan park.
There you go.
And that's the thing, is like, you can still have a nice holiday without spending all that money. But so what does God want us to do?
Yeah, good one. So I think that's an interesting point. I think one of the key items to think about is the idea of what money is. So money is not to be worshipped and glorified. Money is simply a resource, like any other resource we have, whether that be hair or time, youth, energy. Money is just one of those types of resources. And if you start spending a lot of time devoting your energy to really work on that and really start obsessing about it, it's obviously a significant problem for you. And one way of doing that, or getting yourself out of that, is in fact to give a lot of it away. It's absolutely counterintuitive, but it's absolutely the best thing to do. Because the obsession that we can often have about hoarding that and checking out our bank balance all the time and things like that, not only is that remarkably unhealthy in psychologically and certainly spiritually, but it also makes you susceptible for other things. And that can be Nobody's ever going to steal from a poor person because they simply don't have anything. Whereas the more that you have, the more you need to increase your security to make sure that nobody else can take it from you. And then I know I've just said that, and that's a bit of a blurry frame, because in fact we do know that homeless people are beaten for what little they do have, and that's taken from them. But I think in general the principle is there that the more you have, the more you need to secure it and make sure that nobody else can take it from you.
And the more you suffer when it goes, when it's gone.
Correct. Yeah, the more you absolutely take a hit when it goes. So I think that one of the key items is to hold the reins lightly. Look at it as a blessing that's come your way in whatever way it's come to you, and really make sure that you use that resource in the way that it's intended, not just pour and store it.
I reckon that's a really good way to look at it, is it is a resource and not to be worshipped, because that's what it can turn into. And and I don't think, I think money is the root of all evil is a really bad mindset to have around, bad relationship to have around money. Money is the investor in our kids' education, like you said. Money is the investor in putting a roof over our head. Money is the investor in our being able to live. It is freedom. It does give you a lot more freedoms and a lot more ability to do more things and have more fun. There's no getting away from it. But how much is too much? And are you killing yourself to get that much?
Correct. I think it's really a good way of measuring, like a speedometer, if you like, on how you're going. Not obsessively, but at least keep a bit of an eye on it to see how things are going. Like if your money resources are going down significantly, you're going to need to change things. You just are. If it's going up significantly, similarly, you're going to need to change things. You do need to think about the way that you're going to put that in, and don't just keep it in the same space and all those different things. So
and it's really interesting to me, because I have been a bankrupt single mum living on the poverty line, not for a long time because I was working, but just a very, very different income. And, like my kids would eat and I would eat their leftovers. Like that was my life.
Exactly what you mean.
Yeah. And then now I'm at the other end of that spectrum, where I've got a successful business, and I've intentionally created a lifestyle business. So I don't have to work ridiculous hours, so I can't enjoy my life. So I could have a lot more money if I worked a lot more hours, but I would have no time to enjoy that money and those resources. And so I found that it's not even a fine line, but I found the happy medium where I could earn enough money to still have a lifestyle and still be able to give and still be able to have time with people and still be able to spend time with my family and things like that. But still I grapple with the what's overindulgent and what's too much. Is it overindulgent to want to go buy new clothes when I don't need new clothes? Is it overindulgent to have more things when really I can live quite happily with what I've got? And I think that it's that relationship that we have with money that can really be a barrier to having abundance and still being able to give and share with other people around us as well.
Yeah, absolutely correct. I think the other thing is, of course, that what we've experienced now for these last 18 months of lockdown here in Victoria have been it's really given us time to consider what we do with it, because it doesn't matter how much money you have, you're simply not going to go on an overseas holiday. You're not going to go on any holiday, in fact, in the sort of laws that we've been through. It's been really quite difficult. So the whole idea around money has completely changed in that. So it no longer represents power and freedom that we used to think of it as.
Because we've had none.
That's correct. That's correct. And even when we go to the stores initially, when we had things like toilet paper going missing and all those different things, it didn't matter how much money you had. You were going to suffer like everybody else.
It was a really good leveler, actually, wasn't it? This last couple of years has been a good leveler for everyone. It's like we're all pretty much in the same boat. So then how do we deal with that moral struggle that we have over how much do we contribute to people around us, and what do we do for ourselves? Because I honestly believe that God wants us to have abundance and live live a happy life, a full life. How do we know when that's when we've got that abundance and that's too much? I guess going back to your point of the story of what's his name that had
John Wesley.
Yeah, thank you. And to set right, if God wants me to have a good life, then here's how much I would like to have for this good life, where it actually is. I'm not worshiping money. I'm not doing it so I can post on Facebook, look where I am and look what I'm doing, because I think that's kind of a
narcissistic.
Yeah. But I'm doing it to, be able to take my family on holidays, to spend more time, to go and have that time away in a place that really feeds my soul. And this is enough for me. Yeah. So do we just work out what it is that we need for a year and then go, all right, once I've fulfilled that for myself, but then is that selfish because I've taken care of myself first? I mean, what do we do?
Okay, so if you want to talk about John Wesley, to paraphrase what he said, it was earn as much as you can, save as much as you can, and give as much as you can. That's sort of what he said. The exact quotation we can probably post below. That's what he suggested, and all of that is obviously open to.
Save as much as you can, give as much as you can. There's a balance between everything, isn't it?
Correct.
I love that.
And that is a virtue that he he did subscribe to his entire life, and founded what we call the Methodist movement in Protestant churches. So there were Methodist churches, and there are still some even now. Some of them didn't convert into uniting churches or blend. So that was the movement that he
and that didn't limit anything. It didn't say
it actually empowered a whole lot.
Save very little but give away the most. It doesn't say all of that, does it?
No. It's as much as you can. So it's absolutely open for interpretation.
So what does it, because the Bible tells us so many different things, right? It says pack up everything, sell everything, or follow Jesus. And I know that was a sign of the time, and that was just a instruction to the disciples. There was also the above and beyond and abundance, and God's streets are paved with gold and all that sort of stuff. How do we know what God wants us to do according to the Bible?
Yes, well, I think that's always dependent on who is asking that question, because there's a variety of different people who can. There are people who are the sole carer for a significantly disabled partner or child. Their question of that would be significantly different than a multi-millionaire who's been born into that wealth and who simply is not sure on their own identity and if their friends in fact love them because of who they are or because of the amount of money that they can and lifestyle that they can give. There's so many different ways to answer that question, and it is of course dependent on the individual who's asking it. The other part of it, of course, I think is really important to remember that we should just be looking at money as simply it's a resource.
Yeah, I think that's a really healthy way to look at it. This is just the investor in my house. This is just the investor in my running my car. This is just the investor in my holidays. It's not the be all and end all. Well, I guess we were given clear instructions in the Bible where it says 10% of your earnings, which really isn't that much. And I'm going to say, I haven't even been good at doing that. And I think it's not about giving something away, but about contributing to the bigger picture of the world and the kingdom, I guess, if you like, is contributing to God's kingdom. And I often look at it, and it's our mindset around it, right? Instead of me thinking I'm giving away my money, any money that comes in, I give credit to God for it. I'm like, this is your money anyway. Nothing that I have around me is mine in the first place. So therefore, it doesn't matter if I lose it. Doesn't matter. I didn't get it. I mean, I've got everything that I have. I believe I have everything I have because God has allowed me to have it. So when you don't think of it and hold on, like you said, don't hold on to it so tightly that you see it as, well, this is God's resource to do whatever he wants with it. So if he wants me to give money to someone for rent, or if he wants me to contribute here, it really wasn't mine to begin with. So
I think from my perspective as an Anglican priest, we've got something that nobody else really has, and that is the head of our church appears on our money. So the Queen of Australia,
the Queen, yeah, I'm thinking,
who is also the Queen of England, but she's also the Queen of Australia, is the head of the Anglican Church. So yeah, she's on our money, so it helps us when we think about what we're going to do with that. What would she wanting us to do with it?
Yeah.
So and even there's a whole lot of things we could talk about with that, but I urge you to investigate that. What the idea behind what the Queen of Australia wants us to do with Australia is a pretty interesting thing to think about.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think it's really important to think about it just like anything else. And I think we've got a real opportunity to think about the way we do it without obsessing too much.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to money, again, if we think about it like a resource, you can think about it like age and time. There are people who get to my age, for argument's sake, and who start obsessing about how much more time they've got left.
Yes.
So it's not even about the money that they've got left, it's how much time have I got left.
Yep.
And you can use that in a good way to inspire you. Steve Jobs did the same sort of thing, thought, I've only got this much time left, I'm just going to forge ahead and not let myself get bogged down in all these other things.
I think that's a really good point as well, because when we're talking about overindulging, it's not just about money, is it? It's about time. Who are we helping? What's the legacy we're leaving behind in this world? Like if we've got, and yes, when you get to a certain age, you start thinking, I've got more time behind me than I've got in front of me now, right? And you go, what do I want to do with this time? And I guess this is where self-indulgence or self-denial will come into place. Do I just Mother Teresa it and pour my heart and soul into helping others because I want to leave that behind? I want to leave behind a better world? Or do I go, I need to travel as much as possible in this last few years to get and when even as I say that out loud, I think, but for what? Like what? No. Because when I'm dead, nothing changes. So it gives it, I think, thinking about it this way to bring purpose and meaning into your own life, to think, what can I contribute to the world? And if you're a Christian, to the kingdom, right? But it's God's kingdom is our earth at the moment, right? That's what we have influence over.
Sure.
I get, I know I could almost hear you go, no, it's not. Okay, so our influence is on earth to contribute to God's kingdom. I'll say it that way.
Sounds good.
You're on board? What can we do to make a difference? And in doing so, I guess that's where we get the fulfillment and satisfaction and purpose and meaning in our life. And more enjoyment. I must admit, I've gotten more enjoyment out of contributing to others than I have on any holiday.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I can't lie. Like, I have gotten more satisfaction and good feels.
It's an interesting thing too. I've thought even before I was Christian that there's, it's not even just an Australian culture, but there is something where if you're giving somebody something, whether it's money or something, and especially the more significance that is, they don't know how to accept it. And it's like, can I give you this for it? Or can I do it? It's like, no, I'm just giving this to you. Like, just chill. It's not an issue. Let's just enjoy this moment. You're enjoying this. I'm giving this to you. Why can't we just enjoy that? But there is something within culture, and it's like something's shifting. I've got to make sure that I don't put myself an obligation to you, or you're going to ask for something later. And now
that's beliefs. That's where we have to shift our beliefs. And if you think of all of the resources on earth, time, money, everything all belongs to God. It's just a shift of it. It's just like, this isn't mine to begin with. And it just reminds me of a time where just that very story, I was in a supermarket and I was at the checkout behind a lady whose card didn't work. And she was, she had little kids, and she was obviously, and to me saying obviously, she looked like a single mum struggling. And I'm like, I'd been there, right? And so her card didn't work, and she only had a few items. It wasn't even that. It was like, $100. And I was sitting there going, oh my gosh, I can help this woman. But I was worried to say, can I help you? In case she's like, I don't need your help. And like this random act of kindness thing. And I thought, I can't not, like, I'll take the rejection. And I offered her to pay, and she's like, oh my gosh, she accepted and said, thank you so much. And she said, can I pay you back? Can I pay you back? And I said, no, don't worry about it. One day you will be in the position to be able to do this for somebody else.
Yeah.
And so don't worry, like, this is just me helping you out. And the girl behind the counter, I was just like, oh, I've never seen anybody do that. I'm like, I'm sad that you've never seen anybody do that.
You get out more.
But it's that, how do we, why do we not let ourselves accept stuff from each other if we, and do you know what, this is going back to where we used to live in villages, and I would do for you and you would do for him. And like, I would get milk from you and then you would fix this guy's horseshoes. I would love to live in that world again.
It wasn't even so long ago. I can tell you stories of my accountant, of all people, back in the day, was telling me that in New Zealand, there were places, well, certainly where he was living, where the town itself was almost run as a community, where the churches were involved and things. And if somebody lost their job, factory or whatever, they would talk about it amongst themselves, and somebody would say, Frank, you've got to put him on, because he needs a job. And so they would just do that.
Yeah, it was just
great.
It was community living. It was community caring. And I think that's how we were made to live. We weren't made to live in poverty. I don't believe God wants us to live in poverty or without. And I guess what you were saying before about as much as you can, it's like that story of the woman in the Bible where all she had was one coin and she gave it. Yeah. It's like, so if as much as you can is, a 15th, we say, the tiniest bit of what somebody else can, it doesn't matter. And I think to wrap this up and to sort of come to some sort of point, because I don't know that there is actually a point, but it is, I think it's all personal. It's about knowing that God wants us to have abundance, but he also wants us to contribute to each other as well and take care of each other. And there is enough in the world. There's enough time, money, everything, resources in the world for everybody to be, to share and have plenty. It's about, I guess, finding out what feels right for you as well, what feels right. And if you have a faith, then pray about it. Go, God, what do you want me to do? Because he'll tell you, as long as we shut ourselves up to long enough to listen, because I find that's my biggest problem. Like, I ask God and then I keep talking. but the thing is that it's okay to have abundance. It's okay to have enough to live a happy, free life. But what are you contributing at the same time? So if you are earning as much as you can, saving as much as you can, and giving as much as you can, what does that look like to you?
That's right. And it's something I think that's worthwhile to reflect on often.
Absolutely. And just, I think it comes down to that harmony and that balance of taking and giving. And where could I be? Not just giving your money, maybe, but are you giving your time? Are you giving your love? Are you giving your encouragement? Are you giving your wisdom? Are you handing down your skills to the next generation? And that's when I'm coaching people in corporate. I'm like, what legacy are you leaving in your workplace of your skills and that rich experience that you've got? Start focusing on handing that down to the next generation. So I think that's where a good place to rest it, isn't it?
Sounds good to me.
What are we leaving behind of ourselves?
What's our legacy?
Yeah, what's our legacy?
Yeah,
I love that.
Good. Well, hope you've enjoyed this. Leave your comments below. I'll leave that little comment there from John Wesley.
Yeah, please.
And have a great rest of your week.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Beauty and the Priest, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.